So you think you're ready to move to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. That's great. But before you make that move, there's a few things that you might want to consider. And today I'm going to talk about some of those things. Hey, welcome back. And if you're new here, my name is Nick. And on this channel, I talk about things to do here in Myrtle Beach. I give tips and advice about the area. And I'm a real estate agent, so of course I talk about the real estate. So if you are thinking about relocating to the area, then be sure to hit the subscribe button down below and tap the little notification bell while you're at it. This way you can be the first to know about what's going on here in Myrtle Beach. I get calls every single day from people just like you who are moving to the area. So if you ever have any questions or if I can help you find home here at the beach, then I would love to chat with you. You can always use the first link down in the description to schedule a call with me. So before you make your move here to the beach, there's going to be a few things that you want to think about to help make your move as smooth and stress-free as possible. And today I'm going to go over those top 5 things that I think you should have in your mind and you should be thinking about before your move. So the first thing you're going to want to think about is your time frame, and more so than just when you want to move down here, right? So I talk to a lot of people who say, hey, we want to move down there in 3 months or 6 months or in a year. And that's great to have that starting point, but there's going to be a lot of other things that go into your time frame, right? Do you have a home to sell where you're coming from? Do you have kids that are coming with you and you need to navigate around their school year? Are you going to be moving a lot of your furniture down here, or are you going to be buying new furniture when you get down here? Who's doing that move? Are you going to hire a moving company, or are you doing it yourself? So all these things are going to play into and help determine your time frame. Something else that's going to factor into your time frame is your job if you're still working. If you're working from home and you're going to be able to do that remotely, then that doesn't really matter. But if you're planning on getting a new job when you move down here, and you're going to be getting financing on your home, you're going to have something lined up in order to do that. And going back to your current home, if that is something that you're going to need to sell before buying your home down here, then that's something that we're going to have to work around, and it's going to affect your timeline. Have you talked to your realtor in your current town? How fast are homes selling where you're currently at? Are they selling in just a couple days? Is it taking a month? Is it taking 3 months? And what does that pricing look like? Have you gotten an updated pricing analysis on your home? Is that something that you are okay with, that number? And do you need to lower that number a little bit in order to get your home to sell quickly to meet your deadlines down here? Again, all stuff that is going to play into your time frame, and you're going to want to start having those conversations sooner rather than later. The next thing that you're going to want to consider is your property taxes, especially if you are somebody who is in a lucky position to be able to buy something down here before you're actually ready to move. I work with a lot of people who buy homes here a year, 2 years, 3 years before they're actually ready to move to South Carolina. They use it as a vacation home. They come visit periodically, but they're still living in their home state while they finish up work, as they work towards retirement or get the kids through school. Now, if you're somebody who is in this position where you're able to buy a home here before you're actually ready to move, before you sell your home where you're currently at, that's great because that helps with the time frame, right? It helps reduce the number of moving parts because you already got this part out of the way. But that is going to affect your tax rate down here. So here in the Myrtle Beach area, there are 2 different tax rates, whether it is your primary residence, so you're living there permanently, or if it's a second home or an investment property. The big numbers people see is if it's your primary residence, you're taxed at a 4% rate. If it is a second home or investment property, you're taxed at a 6% rate. Those aren't the final numbers, right? You still have to calculate the millage rate based on the specific town or school district that you're in. But the way that it works out is on your primary residence, the effective tax rate is going to be about 0.4% of the purchase price or the value. And on a second home investment property, it's going to be about 3 times that. So 1.2% of the value of the home, right? So that's a big difference. Again, it's about 3 times the amount if you're not living in that home permanently. And how that's determined, whether or not that's your primary residence, there's some steps that you need to take. You have to have your license addressed at that address. You have to have your car registered at that address. And now more recently, you also need to be filing your income taxes from that address, right? So if you are still living in another state and you're not able to do those things, but you have a home here, you are going to be taxed at that higher rate. Now, the next thing you're going to want to consider, and this might seem like an obvious one, but that is, where do you want to live? And you might be thinking, well, I want to live in Myrtle Beach. That's why I'm watching this video. But what people consider the greater Myrtle Beach area, also known as the Grand Strand, it's a fairly large area, right? We're talking over a 60-mile stretch of beach up from Little River on the border of North Carolina and South Carolina, all the way down to the Pawleys Island area on the south end, and then even into Conway as well. So it's a fairly large area, and even though you want to move to Myrtle Beach, there's a lot of specific areas that you could live. And yes, everything is fairly close, especially if you take out some of the outliers. Like Little River to Myrtle Beach is going to be about 40 minutes, and the depths of Conway to Myrtle Beach are going to be about 30 to 40 minutes, and Pawleys Island to Myrtle Beach is going to be about 40 minutes. And I keep using Myrtle Beach because that really is the center if you look at it on a map. But if you take out those outliers and then you talk about like Carolina Forest, and you talk about North Myrtle Beach, and you talk about Murrells Inlet, all those are going to just be about 20 minutes from the center, Myrtle Beach. So everything is relatively close. But you know, where you choose to specifically live, that's where you're going to spend most of your time. And each spot, again, even though they're close, they all have their pros and cons that you're going to want to think about. And speaking of that, a lot of people call me when we first talk. They say right off the bat, we don't want to live in Myrtle Beach specifically because that's where all of the tourism is. And yes, that is one of the downsides of downtown Myrtle Beach. But you also got to remember that that's a small part of Myrtle Beach, right? I personally live within the city of Myrtle Beach in an area that's called Market Common, but it's a much more residential area than downtown Myrtle Beach, where all of the hotels and high-rise condo buildings are, right? So I wouldn't completely rule out an area just because of some of those things that you hear. You can still live just like 10 minutes outside of downtown, still be within city limits, but still be within a more residential and quiet area. The next thing that you're going to want to think about is whether you want a new construction home that's brand new that nobody has lived in, or a used home that we also call resale homes, right? Both options are going to have their share of pros and cons, and each one is going to affect that timing a little bit. So that goes back to your time frame as well. With a new construction home, there's going to be some different options, right? You can completely build a home from scratch, which is obviously going to be a longer time frame. It's going to be a little bit more expensive as well. Or you have the spec home option or the inventory home option. Different builders call it different things, but that's basically where the builder picked out all of the options that are going into the home. They've already started the home, and you can buy one of those that is 3 months out from completion. You can buy one that's a month out from completion, or you can buy one that is already done, right? So that is going to give you a little bit of variance in the time frame. When you're looking at a used home, you're going to need to expect to close within 30 to 60 days, right? So that's a little bit different as well. With a new home, obviously everything is brand new. Nobody's lived in there before. With a used home, you know, somebody's lived there. Things might not be perfect and exactly in their place. But on the flip side, you know, if somebody has taken care of their home, they've done some nice upgrades, that home might feel a little bit more homey and mature, and you don't have to do some of that stuff to make it feel that way. Something else to consider when buying new versus buying used is your negotiating power, right? If you're building a brand new home from scratch and you're going to put your personal touches on it, and it's going to take 12 months for the home to be built, you're not going to have a lot of wiggle room on that price. With spec homes, that's a little bit different. You're gonna have some negotiating power, especially as the home is getting closer to completion. And then when you go over to used homes, obviously that's gonna look a lot different. You're gonna have a lot more negotiating power, especially if the home isn't in perfect condition. But you also gotta remember with a used home, you're dealing with an individual owner who has their own needs and specifications, and they have their own emotions, right? So you have to make sure you're working around that, and it's gonna be a little bit more of a compromise. And the last thing that you really want to consider and think about when you're moving to this area is that a lot of our communities are going to be tract home communities, and they are going to have HOAs, and that might be different than what you're used to. What is this going to mean? You're typically going to have smaller yards, smaller lots. You are going to have HOA dues or community fees that you're going to have to pay. And if you're looking for a home that is more private with a little bit more land, you're going to need to expect to pay a premium on that, or you're going to have to expect to be further away from the beach. Now, I do talk to a lot of people who originally moved to Florida and now they're moving back up to this area about the halfway point from where they came on the Northeast. And the number one thing they tell me is, hey, we don't want a community where the HOA dues are between like $300 and $500 a month. The good news is with our single family home communities, they're typically not going to be that high unless you're in like a 55 plus community where they're taking care of your yard, they're taking care of the outside of your home and things like that. I'd say the average for our single family home communities for the HOA dues is around $100 a month. And obviously that can go up or it can go down a little bit depending on the type of amenities you have and what else is included. Now, if you are getting like a condo or townhouse, yes, the HOA dues are going to be higher. I'd say the average for those are probably about $300 to $400 a month. But that goes back to them taking care of a couple more things for you. They're going to take care of the outside, the maintenance of the lawn and things like that. So there are some differences there. And obviously you can get something that's on the lower end where there's not a bunch of amenities, or you can get something on the higher end where there's like a pool, fitness center, pickleball courts, tennis courts, things like that. And just to touch on the lot size a little bit, yes, these tract home communities, they do pack them in there. A lot of our lots are going to be around just 0.2 acres. If you want to be in a community with larger lots, again, you're going to pay a little bit more of a premium for that, or it's going to be in a community that's about 20, 30 minutes from the beach versus something that's 10 to 15 minutes away. Obviously, we do have homes that are outside of HOAs as well. You can get homes with a little bit more land as well. But again, expect to be a little bit further away from the beach if that is something that you're looking for. And that's going to be the top 5 things that you need to be considering and thinking about before you make your move here to the beach, right? Again, that's going to be your time frame. You need to be thinking about the tax situation, where you want to specifically live. You need to be thinking about whether or not you want a new home or a used home. And then again, you want to get familiar with these tract home or HOA communities. If this information helped you in any way, I'd appreciate it if you hit that thumbs up button down below and subscribe if you've not done so already. I post videos like this every single week. And if you are ready to make your move here to the beach, then I would love to chat with you. I'd love to help you in any way that I can. You can always use the first link down in the description to schedule a call with me. I'm looking forward to speaking with you. I want to thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.